Well, welcome to another video. This is a revised kelp farm. I have demolished the one that I was showing you on the last video. It was kind of in this general area. It's now gone. And this is a new design of kelp farm, which is completely my own design. It's got none of the traditional stuff like observers and things that you would find on any kelp farm you see online. Reason for that being, of course, that it is purely Computercraft based. So there are two of them here, both identical apart from the position of the sort of base station here. So let's just briefly explain how it works. So each farm is only 3 blocks deep. So if I head into the water, you've got a single kelp at the bottom and then 2 more blocks above, and that's it. The size doesn't have to be square, though these are square, but it must be an even number of blocks wide. So I think this one is 12 by 12. It won't work if it's say 11 by something, because when the turtle does its backwards and forwards scanning of the area, it'll get confused because it doesn't finish where it's expecting to finish. So the way it works is that the turtles, which you can see are currently parked on the top of a barrel and are facing 2 smokers. They're the ones that actually do the farming, and they're equipped, as you can see, with a diamond hoe. The reason for that is that the diamond hoe will not break blocks. It will only break vegetable matter and soil. So when the turtle is ready, it comes up over the top of one of these hoppers, harvests the first kelp in the top of the water, and then as it goes along the row here, it breaks the kelp in front of it and the one below it, so that it always leaves the initial single one on the floor. Then when it gets to this end, it turns, goes this way, and head back along this direction as well. So you can see that it will take, assuming that the kelp was fully grown, it would take the surface area times 2 numbers of kelp. So in this case, if it's all fully grown, which is 12 by 12, 144 kelp plants times 2, so 288 kelp plants at all, and those have to be bundled into blocks of 9 in order to make the dried kelp blocks. So that will give you potentially 32 blocks of dried kelp. So what it does, once it's collected them all and it's done its backwards and forwards up here, it comes to the edge of the farm, then returns still under the water on the top surface. Oh, this one's going now, so we can see this one in action. So there, as it goes in, and as you can see, it's harvesting the top kelp plant, which is in front of it, and the one below it. So we'll return back to this one once it's reached here, and then what it does when it reaches the hoppers is it will count how many kelp it's got and put half into one hopper and half into the other. Oh, this one's also on its way. And then based on that calculation, it will add fuel from the chest below. I can just open this one, put this one back on. So this one has a storage of fuel in here, and this one has dried kelp that has dropped from the smoker. So it will make sure that there's enough fuel in the smoker to cope with whatever has been dropped into the hoppers here, and then it will sit as these two were a moment ago and wait for those to finish drying the kelp, and the dried kelp is dropped into the barrel below. So we'll come back to what that does in a minute. Let me just make it light. So we've now got it a bit brighter. This one is almost finished, so we'll wait until it reaches here, and then you can see, let's see how many kelp it's got inside it at the moment. Okay, so just over 2 stacks by the time it gets back, probably 2.5 stacks there. So heading back towards the hoppers. Okay, so it's put in roughly half and half into the 2 hoppers, and it's now sitting on top of this storage barrel. It's crafting from any dried kelp that was already in the chest below. So there's still stuff coming in from the smokers, and it's now placed into the smokers the appropriate amount of kelp, dried kelp block to smelt the kelp above, and it will include whatever was remaining in the hopper. This one's the same. Let's see if we can. We missed the crafting process there, but it's crafted any dried kelp from below. It's refueled the smokers again, and it's now waiting for them to go. Once it has fueled the smokers, what it does is sitting here and waiting for the furnaces to go out. It will check this one, then it will rotate and check this one. Once they've both gone out, then it will repeat the process that we just observed, where they come out of here, go around, harvest all the kelp, come back and sit on there. Once the kelp that they have turned, picked up from, this is obviously going to be increasing all the time because its dried kelp is coming in from both the smokers into this one barrel here. So the hoppers underneath are sending that in there. Once it's been crafted into kelp blocks and has been used to fuel, the turtle checks its own fuel level and takes some for itself if required, and then the rest is dropped into this sort of overall storage chest here. Now this one is linked down with a hopper to the one below, which of course is full, and then that is connected to a modem here which can carry the dried kelp to wherever it's required in the storage system. I'll go through the code briefly. So that's a far better design, and it produces a lot more kelp from the particular surface area and over a particular time than it does from the more traditional observer-based farms. The farm can be made bigger than this, but what you have to bear in mind is that each hopper can only store 5 stacks of kelp. So that between them is 10 stacks of kelp. So what you have to do is to take the surface area of your farm and multiply it by 2, because if it was completely grown, you would get double the surface area numbers of kelp, and then work out how many stacks that would produce to make sure that it would not overfill these hoppers, or we're going to get into trouble with that it not accepting all of the kelp. So I would suggest that you could easily double the size of these. These are, as I say, I think 12 by 12. You could probably do 16 by 16 easily, probably even bigger than that, but you're then starting to get to the limits. But I found that these two working together produce a huge amount of this, unless you've got exceptional needs for that dried kelp. These are probably adequate. Also, the advantage of having 2 rather than one large one is the time it takes to smelt all this kelp. So we've now got 4 smokers dealing with all the kelp, whereas if you only had one large farm, you'd only have 2. So it's far more efficient to use the double smelters here. Okay, I'll leave that one to do its stuff, and we'll show you the code. Right, so here's the code. I'll put the link in the description of where it's held in pastebin, but it's up there for you to see. We'll see how it works. So as usual with my stuff, I have a main function, which is that's the only bit that runs, and that runs the main function. So this, of course, has to compensate for the fact that if you move away somewhere else, or you shut the game off before the smelter is finished, Turtle could end up anywhere. So this also has a kind of a finding home method built in. So the first step here is to find out, are we at home, using this is home. So it's going to check whether there's a barrel or a chest below. You could use a chest. I've just happened to have chosen a barrel because it looks slightly nicer, but either would do. So it's using a function that I wrote here called isItem of type down chest barrel. So that will check in one line what exactly we've got down below us. So if we check out the isItem of type, we can see that it takes the direction and the item table. So you can check a number of items are in that direction, which would be, of course, up, down, or forward. And then the item table can be supplied with just a single string, so that is checked later on. So the first thing it does is to check what our direction is. If it's up, then we use the inspect up. If it's down, inspect down, and if straightforward, then just plain old Turtle inspect. And that will give us whether or not there is an item to inspect, and also the data about that item. So we check whether it's succeeded in identifying there is a block. Then we're looking to see whether we supplied here in the parameters a table or a simple string, and then it will work accordingly, either just checking what the string is or going through the items in the table. And it's looking to see whether the items that we've supplied are present or not. So it's fairly simple check there. So it's just checking to see whether the item down is a chest or a barrel, and if it is, it returns lowercase c. If it's not a chest or a barrel, then we're going to return a different letter depending on what exactly we have got below us. So if it's nothing below, that means we're somewhere in the air, so we return A, short for air. If it returns that there is water below, then or kelp below, then we're in the farm, so we're returning W. And if we've got the hopper below, we're returning H. So that covers the only real possible, if I just drop this out of the way again, the only possibilities if this turtle was to stop suddenly because we moved out of chunk or you switched the game off, where could it possibly end? It could end up anywhere inside the water here, or it could be just as it's rising up to go across the hopper. It could be on the hopper itself, on its way down to in front of the smokers, or on the chest. So those are really the only possibilities. So that code checks all the possibilities to find out where it is. So let's go back to the code. So we check whether we're at home or not. If we're unable to determine where we are, then it will just break and say unable to determine the position, move to the start and reboot. If it's not on the chest, then we use the go home function here, which we will find now. So that checks where we are. And it has its own set of library functions inside the go home function. So these are kind of nested functions here. We'll shrivel those up a little bit. So this is quite a complex home finding thing. So first thing it does is to create a variable called block type. Then it uses where we start on, which is passed, where we started it on, is passed to this function. So if it starts on H, then we know it's above a hopper. Then we're going to carry out the libabovehopper. And then if we're on water, then we're going to check whether we're right on top of the water, whether we've climbed out of the water, and so on. So the idea is that the go home will return us back to the starting point, which is on top of the chest. So I won't go through all of it at this stage, but let's just check, for example, the one that says libabovehopper. Now this, because I haven't shown you how this works, but what we're basically trying to do is, let's say if we go back, let's drag this out of the way. If we go back to where we were here, let's say that the turtle had come up here, was just about to have gone onto the hopper, ready to turn and go down into the water, and that's the point where the game stopped or the chunk was unloaded. Then the turtle is on top of the hopper, but it could be facing that way, it could have turned and be facing that way, or it could have just come back from the field and it could be here. So we need to kind of work out where exactly is the turtle in regard to the hopper. So the technique which I developed, which seems to be quite effective, is what you do is you make a small map of where you are. So first move is you move the turtle forward and check what's below, in this case air. Then you come back, then clockwise you check what's to the right, check what's below, again it will be air, come back, then check what's to the south, the 6 o'clock position, and this time it will be water, go back, and then check what's to the west, the sort of 9 o'clock position. So you've got these 4, so you've got air, air, water, and then border. So if we put the code back in, so we first of all make a map. So the map is empty string, then we go forward to the north, and then we add to the map whatever we see below it. So if we add to the map, so we get the block type which is below us. If it's empty, we add A to the map, and then if it's water below, then we add W. If it's a hopper below, we add H, and then finally we add B. So we should end up with, once we have done our entire map, with a map of 4 letters like this, showing you what is to the north, east, south and west, relatively speaking, of the turtle. And so, for example, if the map is AABW, that means you've got air to the north, air to the east, border to the south, and water to the west. So it gives you this map so that you know where the turtle is, and each of these 4-letter combinations is unique depending on where the turtle is and which direction it's facing. So from there we can work out which direction to go in order to return home. So for example, if we choose this first one, air, air, border, water, then we have to go left 1, forward 1, right 1. So if I go back to the map here, so let's say we were here, our map will be air, air, sorry, if we were here, it would be air, if we're on this one here facing that way, air, air, border, water. Then we go left one, forward one, right one. So we would turn left, go forward, turn right, go forward. And then that puts us on top of the other hopper. And we're then ready to go down and sit onto the right place there. So the mapping system allows us to move to the right area. Once we're back home, then what we do is we check whether the storage is available. Using this turn to storage routine here. So we turn the turtle round and check whether in front of it there is a chest or a barrel. If it turns round 4 times and there is no sign of a chest or barrel, then it returns false. Otherwise, it will stop at the point where the barrel is found and then return true. So that the turn to storage is a way of making the turtle turn in a particular direction. So in this case, if it's here, as this one is, and we called the turn to storage, it would turn. Is that storage? No. Turn. Is that storage? Yes. It will exit that function and then continue with. So just to show how to build it is very, very simple. Just build a square or rectangular area. Make sure that it has an even number of water blocks inside it and it's only 3 deep. On each corner put a hopper. This corner is empty apart from a barrel at the bottom, or you could use a chest. The hopper goes into the top of a smoker, and then below each smoker the hopper turns into the same barrel, so the output from both these smokers goes into this barrel. Then you need to put to the back or side of the turtle when it's here a chest. So I put it here, but I could easily have put it across this way. The reason I put it here is so that it could be shared with the other farm. So this is the collection chest. If you then want to hopper that down into another collection chest, then obviously you're going to have a far greater storage capacity, especially when you're using it with the modem system to move stuff into the storage system there. Now over there you'll see there is a bamboo farm which will be a subject to another video. The reason for using bamboo is that what I discovered while working on this is that a single block of kelp will smelt 20 items. So if I was to put a single block of kelp in here, I can put 20 items in there. If you smelt, say, 1 item, and then you leave the furnace alone, while the flames are still showing here, in other words, the furnace is lit, you can continue to add more items until it's used up all 20 burn units. However, if you only burn 1 item, smelt 1 item, and then let the flames die, which may take a couple of minutes, that's it. You have wasted that amount of fuel. I was not aware of that, but once I realized that, I realized that using dried kelp is not very efficient, because if I want to smelt, say, 8 items of sand to make 8 blocks of glass, I will spread them amongst 8 furnaces and put 1 block of sand in each, plus enough fuel to burn or smelt that 1 glass. But with kelp, I can only put at minimum 1 block, which should do 20 items. So I'm wasting an awful lot of fuel. So I realized I needed something that had a lower value, lower smelting value. So of course bamboo was the next one to use. So that's why the bamboo farm were produced over there. So I think that will be it for this video. You should be able to see from the way I've put this together how it all works. So I'll just scan round it briefly for you to see how it all goes together, but I don't think I need to do a full tutorial. So 3 blocks deep. Use what you like for the walls, use what you like for the floor. 2 hoppers, 2 smokers, a storage barrel or chest underneath, and a storage barrel or chest to collect the final goods. That's it. And the code from pastebin I'll link in the description.